I still see the moonlight slipping through my bedroom window, painting the walls in silver. It was late November, crisp air brushing against the pane, when everything changed in the blink of an eye. I'd just turned 72, and like most nights, I'd settled into bed early, book in hand. My wife, Helen, was already asleep beside me, breathing softly. I flipped off the lamp, closed my eyes, and then my chest seized. At first, I thought it was just heartburn. I'd had indigestion before, following that extra slice of pumpkin pie at Thanksgiving dinner, so I rolled over, hoping the pressure would ease. Instead, it doubled. My breath came in shallow gasps, like someone had plunged a pillow against my face. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it echoing in my throat. Panic whispered its first warning. Maybe this was more than indigestion. I scrambled out of bed, my legs wobbling like they belonged to someone else. I made it to the hallway light switch, then collapsed against the wall. My hand pressed against my chest, searching for that familiar rhythm, but all I felt was a thudding rebellion. Somewhere down the hall, Helen stirred. I tried to call out, but my voice was raspy. "Helen, help!" When she burst into the hallway, her eyes widened at the sight of me slumped against the wall. One moment, her face was soft with sleep. The next, she dialed 911 on her phone, her fingers trembling. I remember the sound of her voice, steady but urgent, telling the dispatcher my name, my age, my symptoms. Relief and terror tangled in her words. As we waited for help, the room spun around me. The colors bled together, and the hallway light seemed too bright. I felt detached, as if I were watching myself from the corner of the ceiling. I tried to speak again to reassure Helen that everything would be fine, but I could barely lift my head. Then I heard the sirens. Their wail cut through the night like a promise. Paramedics burst in, voices calm and focused. They must have checked my pulse, strapped me to a board, and slid me into the ambulance. But in my haze, all I caught was Helen's hand squeezing mine so hard it hurt. In a good way. The sense of love and fear and hope shining through her eyes. The ride to the hospital stretched on forever and took no time at all. I remember staring at the ceiling of the ambulance, lights flashing overhead, feeling both terrified and unbelievably grateful. At the emergency door, they whisked me inside. Doctors and nurses were a blur, voices speaking in medical shorthand I barely understood. STEMI, clot, prepare cath lab. "I'll take it from here," someone said. Then I was alone, sliding down a narrow corridor toward a discovery I still can't believe. A blockage, 95% in one of my main arteries. That night could have been the end of my story without immediate intervention. They wheeled me into the cath lab. I lay on that cold table, bright lights overhead, hooded eyes watching as they threaded a tiny camera through my artery. I felt nothing, just the steady beep of the heart monitor and the hum of machines. Then a thin balloon inflated and deflated inside me, opening the vessel. They placed a stent, a little scaffold to keep it open. I barely felt the pinch. When it was over, I drifted in and out of consciousness. The next thing I knew, I was back in a hospital room. Helen was there, her face streaked with tears and joy. She kissed my forehead and whispered, "You're back." Those were the first words I heard on the other side of that night, and I still carry them with me. Over the following days, I mulled over what happened. I had always considered myself healthy, walking every morning, eating a balanced diet, keeping my stress in check, but my annual checkup last spring showed rising cholesterol, and I'd shrugged it off. I regretted ignoring those early warnings, the occasional chest tightness on cold mornings, the fatigue I blamed on just getting older. That night was my wake-up call. It felt like a second birth. When they released me, I promised to treat every breath, heartbeat, and sunrise as a gift. I swapped my usual black coffee for herbal tea. I joined a gentle yoga class for seniors. I sat with a cardiologist and learned everything I could about keeping my heart strong. Most importantly, I reprioritized what mattered. More time with Helen, weekly dinners with our grandchildren, and phone calls to old friends I'd let slip away. But the real miracle wasn't just surviving the surgery. It was how that brush with death rippled through the rest of my life. I thought I was old enough to slow down, to coast. Instead, I felt energized, like I'd been handed a fresh start. 6 months after the incident, I climbed a small hill behind our house at dawn, watching the sky lighten. Standing there, heart steady, I realized how precious every ordinary moment can be. When I share this story, people often ask, "Did you change everything overnight?" The answer is no. Habits are hard to break, but change doesn't have to be massive. It only has to be intentional. One walk today, one phone call to someone you love, one appointment with a doctor. Those small steps make all the difference. I want you to remember this. If your heart jolts you awake in the middle of the night, literally or metaphorically, listen. Pay attention to the whispers your body or your life sends. Don't wait for a crisis to remind you of what truly matters. That night I almost died, but what followed was the greatest gift I could imagine. A second chance at living fully, vibrantly, and gratefully. And if my story inspires you to take even one small step toward better health, deeper relationships, or chasing a dream, then every heartbeat and every retelling will have been worth it. So tell me, have you ever had your wake-up moment? Drop your story in the comments. Let's build a space where every second chance becomes a reason to live with more courage, love, and purpose.